The Peter Tullett Memorial Park is a public leisure park and playground located in Spring Mountain, selected as the setting for this observational case study. The observational analysis of the relationship between this setting and the people within the setting reveals how the environment influences behaviour and how behaviour impacts the environment. Exploring these relationships has allowed an analysis of the physical environment and its elements through a site appraisal. The observed activities and behaviours of the occupants within the space and the elements of the setting also allow an understanding into the site's comfort, safety, performance, health and well-being, as well as the psychological and psychosocial aspects. Observational analysis was completed over a duration of 5 sessions lasting 30 minutes to an hour. Site observations were collected over a variety of different days and conditions in order to understand the site's conditions and range of users. The analysis sessions' dates and times were specifically selected to observe occupant behaviour during a range of physical and ambient conditions, time periods throughout the day, and different users over weekdays and weekends. Observed occupants within the space range from individuals, families, and groups utilising the space in a variety of different ways. Observations were taken from 4 different locations indicated on this site map. The locations were selected as they provide an optimal view of the park and the movements of occupants within the space. Applying Brunswick's framework of environmental perception and spatial cognition to the space allows an analysis of the setting's actual beauty to be judged through perceptual factors, revealing the appraisal of the perceived beauty. Judging a select number of distal cues within the site, such as the number of trees, people, seats, zones, amount of litter, and colour of equipment against proximal cues, demonstrating the setting's beauty. As cue utilisation matches with the ecological validity, the resulting factors are high achievement, meaning the perception of the environment matches closely with the actual environment. The site's emotional appraisal, using Moravian and Russell's framework, and the PAD emotional state model assessed elements within the site and their influence on the levels of emotion experienced within the setting. The emotional range identified based upon the behaviours of the collective individuals across a range of sessions revealed the setting performed as moderately arousing and maximally pleasurable. Emotions identified within this positive range included excited, happy, pleased, calm, relaxed, and displeasure recognized as alarmed, annoyed, and tired. Pleasure and displeasure were identified through the observed behaviours of kids running around and playing, occupants looking pleased and chatting with others, occupants relaxing, and exercisers looking visibly tired. Elements within the site identified as contributors to this emotional state, creating arousal and non-arousal, included elements such as colourful play equipment, grass zones for activity, eating areas, seating, and ambient conditions such as acoustics of bird noises and people talking. Elements within the setting have a certain level of dominance in the activity they determine. However, use of elements were controlled by factors of crowding within the space. The environmental arousal levels are influenced by the concept of environmental load comprising intensity, novelty, and complexity of elements within the setting. Elements contributing to the intensity include the sensory simulation of sounds, such as the acoustic qualities of children playing and nearby construction echoing, as well as bright colours of playground equipment and the contrast of bright white paths through green grass. Novelty included the familiar and unfamiliarity of elements, such as the playground equipment and its purpose, legible signs and information, and the unfamiliarity of the playground's snake design to create a unique tone for the setting. The complexity of the environment's load stems from the understandable use of playground purpose and park leisure activities, legible paths, and the complexity of layouts, zones, and signs within the space. The observation of the environment and behaviour of people's spatial cognition and wayfinding showed that those entering the space used landmarks and other elements to define their paths. Applying Kevin Lynch's theory to this environment demonstrates the elements that contribute to the legibility and understanding of the space. Paths and edges are clear defining features of the landscape that create an understanding of the wayfinding that allows users to navigate the space through districts. Landmarks such as the playground are distinctive within the environment, with bright blue colours, great height, and separate from other nodes and districts. Its central location within the park defines it as a hierarchical element of the environment and is established as a cognitive anchor point. The observed spatial acoustic quality is an important component in the multi-sensory experience of the setting. As the setting is located within a basin between hills, the ambient qualities of sound echo throughout the space. Sounds of birds, wind, people moving through the space, and building construction are components of the unconscious background experience that contribute to the spatial quality. However, observed sounds such as loud music and dirt bikes were observed as unwanted sounds. The sounds of a dirt bike in session 2 echoed throughout the space, causing a parent to try and identify the location of the prevailing sound. Once the dirt bike entered the park, driving up the adjoining path, the individual then made a hurried exit with their children from the park, visibly reacting to the high-pitched sound that disturbed the ambient conditions of the space. An individual's well-being is reflected in their feelings regarding themselves in relation to the environment. Wall's theory of well-being identifies 3 scales in which one's well-being can be measured: pleasure to displeasure, comfort to anxiety, enthusiasm to depression. The introduction of unwanted acoustic qualities such as the dirt bike have an impact on the individual's feelings of comfort and safety within the space. Feelings of displeasure and anxiety were identified as a motive response, explaining the actions of leaving the space or avoiding the areas from which the unwanted sounds are produced. Elements such as the seating within the Memorial Rock Zone demonstrate Gibson's avoidance theory. In Session 3, it was observed that the surface afforded the actions of skating, walking, and sitting due to the composition and ergonomics of the elements. However, it was identified that the flooring, composed of the same material, did not provide the same affordances, as the designed element had a surface change preventing skating. The repeated substance of the timber is identified as a surface of flooring and seating due to the layout of such elements. It affords a range of activities within the arrangement of surfaces, allowing the elevated zone to be utilized in different ways. Paths to and through the space have a limited accessibility as the surface creates accessibility issues and the surfaces are rough and inconsistent, limiting what the place allows individuals to do. The territorial boundary of the public space through the markings of belongings and personalization of the space. The group was observed to be celebrating a birthday party with personalization markings of balloons, temporary signs, and belongings such as bags, coolers, and a miniature jumping castle. A second group entered the site and chose to walk past the playground and adjoining zones to another location, after identifying personal markers as boundaries. Creating territorial boundaries of personal space defines the space using those markers of territoriality. Personal boundary markers structure and define the use of the space within the environment. Other occupants of the space avoid invading this boundary and may observe the space as private due to its claim of territory. Psychological and psychosocial behavior of personal space was observed between both adults and children within the setting. Adult interactions observed that in Session 5, Parent 1, upon entering the space, observed the occupied seating area and elected to sit on the other side of the playground on unofficial seating in order to avoid encroaching on Occupant 1's personal space. Parent 2, upon entering the space, sat next to Parent 1, demonstrating their known relationship with them as they breached their personal space. Parent 3, upon entering the space, avoided contact with others and respected the boundary of social distance, choosing to sit across from them. Hall's theory of personal space suggests that we have 4 categories of personal space: intimate, personal, social, and public space. The observed interactions of the individuals demonstrates their relationship, as interpersonal distance communicates their social relationship within the context of the environment. The psychological and psychosocial behavior of children's interactions in regards to personal space was observed during multiple sessions. Children in Session 3, outside the planned party group, were seen interacting with the other children, with many of them breaching boundaries of personal space, whilst parents maintained a social distance. Children in Session 5 were observed to also interact with each other despite the social distance maintained by parents. Hayduck's theory of personal space suggests that personal space expands as we age, and children are happy to be physically closer to each other. The interaction with children with other children unknown to them in the setting demonstrates this theory, as many young children choose to interact with each other and ignore social distance boundaries. Based upon the observed behavior of occupants within the space and the theories their behavior is made evident, a design recommendation to improve the well-being and comfort of users has been proposed. Exploring the theories of personal space and well-being, a multi-user seating structure could be added to the environment to create another opportunity of seating for the playground space. observed behavior identified that the current covered seating structure was seen as occupied by other users, creating issues of crowding within the playground setting. Providing a second separate structure would ensure adequate seating that users can claim as their personal space. The design solution provides 3 large bench seating zones with covered protection that is effective in creating a sense of personal space through the spacing of 1.5 meters between seats. The intention is to invite more users to occupy the same space and encourage interaction between occupants while still maintaining comfortable levels of personal space and user well-being.